Are prospects for democracy hopeless, or is there light around the corner?
Have we all been living in an age of shamelessness?
Does AI have you excited or worried about what it means to be human?
Welcome to Philosophy Talk, the program that questions everything.
Except your intelligence. I'm Ray Briggs.
And I'm Josh Landy. We're coming to you via the studios of KALW San Francisco Bay Area.
Continuing conversations that begin at Philosopher's Corner on the Stanford campus, where Josh teaches philosophy.
And at the University of Chicago, where Ray teaches philosophy.
Today, it's the examined year 2025. Our annual look back at the ideas and events that shaped the last 12 months.
Because the unexamined year is not worth reviewing.
Maybe this year we should make an exception.
Yeah, I kind of see what you mean, Ray. It has been a pretty unedifying past 12 months. Later in the program, we'll be talking about the epidemic of shamelessness in public life and what, if anything, can be done about it.
I'm not sure whether AIs will ever be able to feel shame, but in 2025, the place they occupy in our lives continued growing. So we'll also be talking about things AIs can do, things they can't do, and things they really shouldn't do.
But first, the year in philosophy. Bowls.
Ethics Bowl is a club at our school that's a part of a national organization which hosts competitions for students to discuss ethical and moral issues.
A lot of times we start with our gut instinct and we feel this way, but why do we feel this way? And a lot of times it goes back to normal societal expectations and rules. And we have to go even deeper than that though. Why does this exist? Why is this seen as immoral? That further step has really contributed to how I look at problems outside of Ethics Bowl.
That's a clip from a documentary that came out this past year, The Bowl. It's about a team of 6 North Carolina students going to the National High School Ethics Bowl competition in 2023.
Oh yeah, I remember those. When I lived in Australia, I used to volunteer for ethics bowls in Sydney. They were fantastic.
That is so lovely to hear, Ray. I got to admit, I'd never actually heard about ethics bowls until this year, but I found that documentary really eye-opening.
So we decided to talk to its director, Eli Yetter-Bowman. We started by asking Eli what makes an ethics bowl different from, say, a debate club.
To me, the key difference with Ethics Bowl is really in how the purpose is finding whether a student can articulate all sides of a particular issue, or in many cases examine multiple arguments for a given topic, as opposed to just having really strong rhetorician skills or just the ability to convey a specific point.
It's pretty clear, Eli, that this Ethics Bowl is doing great things for the kids who participate in it. What's one of the things that you think makes it such a great thing for kids to do?
High school Ethics Bowl especially, what it provides as someone who went through the public education system is something that is often missing from public education. To go further, I'd say diversions from multiple choice answers and more of a reflection of real world problem solving, in that often the answer to a problem that we encounter is complicated and it's messy and it's nuanced. To me, the value that Ethics Bowl really provides is it's showing these students firsthand, even us adults, we have a really hard time actually trying to understand things. And sometimes it's more about learning and going through that process of examining the different layers. That is what life is actually going to be like for them later on.
Yeah, everyone sees things differently, but it's definitely not about whoa, they have a different opinion than us, and it's totally bad and totally wrong. It's not really about that. It's just about I don't know, looking at why we see things differently, which I guess is really the spirit of Ethics Bowl, is just exploring different ways that people view the world.
So what would be some examples of questions that you have them discuss in the Ethics Bowl?
It's a large list of volunteers, often grad students, who are coming up with these questions. They're always contemporary. They're always related to things that are actually happening in the world. So I think what I appreciate is that they don't pull punches. They'll ask questions like, should AI actually be allowed for high school students when they are applying to colleges? Things that are relevant to the students. Even things that perhaps for some of the parents might be construed as pretty mature, questions around sexual education in the schools, questions around drug policies or the prison system.
We don't know what psychedelics will do to us long term. We don't know about a lot of the effects, and it's largely unstudied. So by that criteria, wouldn't this fall into something that you all would say is morally impermissible?
I
think with some of the drugs that pose a higher potential for addiction, the issue is that that risk is an immediate risk not just to you, but also to everyone around you. I think that like risk of just damage only to really yourself has less moral weight.
I think what's cool about Ethics Bowl is that it honors the mature intellectualism that high school students have and are capable of.
And it really calls on everyone to be their best self, be their most mature, eloquent, articulate, and thoughtful self. And you can see this coming out in the answers that these kids provide, some of which, as you're suggesting, they're on controversial topics, and even some of the positions they end up in can be slightly interesting and, bold positions, but they are expressing them in reasoned ways. Do you think that very fact itself, that this sort of effort to give reasons for the positions that people hold is valuable, is sort of conducive to the flexing of certain mental muscles?
Yeah, I mean, you might be really pulling out the core benefit of any type of Ethics Bowl program, right? It creates an opportunity for self-reflection of our own biases and our own understandings of the universe. And when it's done sort of at the top level for a student, they take that full circle of, it's not just that I'm given these theoretical questions. That's part of why they're relevant to what's actually happening in the world. And the more that they can make those connections, the more they say, well, wait a minute, I have a feeling around this topic. I have a feeling around drug policies. How did I come to this feeling? Why do I hold those values? That sort of self-interrogation process is the most exciting thing as a mentor, to get to witness students doing that.
Philosophy is so abstract and it seems so difficult, and I think I sort of felt that that I couldn't do that. There wasn't a place for me. There is value for everyone to participate in this kind of discussion and in philosophy, and that it has value for everybody. Believe it or not, we were not paid to say that.
So we've asked you what is valuable about having an ethics bowl, and you've given us some really good answers. What do you hope to achieve by making a movie about ethics bowls? What's valuable about that?
Really, I was just a little sad to know that there wasn't a lot of coverage on the topic. I mean, there's a lot of schools that participate in Ethics Bowl. I was once a student at Carolina, and so I got to volunteer for a year with the program, and I fell in love. And to me, especially being a documentary filmmaker, I thought there's such an opportunity here in how beneficial this is to students. And sometimes it's just a matter of, philosophers who, many of whom help run this program, can do great things, but they're not always good at selling how valuable those things are. And so a documentary was always an exciting opportunity, because we were hoping, can we capture the value of what this experience can be like for people actually doing it? And we got incredibly lucky, just being able to work with a team that just so happened to be one of those special groups of students where they actually gained all of those values that we were just talking about. They were reflecting on their own worldviews. They were growing together as individuals, but also as almost a cohesive family.
Most of us didn't know each other except for having seen each other in a few other classes before this. And then we go to being so comfortable with each other's ideas.
If you're going to dissect someone's basic moral principles, you're going to get to know them a bit.
We developed a kinship with these students, because seeing this type of personal and intellectual growth with a group of students at such a formative age is it's incredibly special. It is so rare. And so I feel very privileged that I had the opportunity to work with an incredible team, an incredible group of students, but also their mentor from high school was spectacular in his approach.
We view success as participating well, not in whether we win, not in whether we lose. Our goal is that we just kind of abide by the mission statement of the Ethics Bowl, and that we literally just do it the right way, and that we grow through the process.
I liked what you were saying also about these students coming together as a family. That really came through in the film, and it made me think, there's people often talk about American football at high schools in this way. Occasionally people get concussions and what have you, but it's really bonding. It's a great experience. And I think, that's fine. But it's great that there's an alternative, right? That you don't have to be on the football team to get this experience of, this profound experience of community in high school. So thank you for being part of this effort. It's really magical. I want to ask you a separate question, which is about the ethics of this film, right? Because it's a film about ethics. And there's also a nice little moment where one of the students, is thinking and worrying about the way in which they're going to be portrayed in the film. Were there things that struck you as ethical questions around how to make this? There were things you wanted to do, things you wanted to avoid, ways you thought it should and shouldn't be done?
Yes, it was something I felt very sensitive around working with a group of minors. These were all minors in this case. And so there were a lot of dialogues that I had to have with the director of the program in terms of, we need to develop a relationship. We need to get clear consent. We need to ensure that they understand that at any point we could back out, that they could change their mind, and that ultimately anything that we filmed had to be stopped. So I tried my best to articulate that as a fan of the program, and also as I think a filmmaker who tries to be responsible. I will do the best that I can, but I just want to be honest and practical, because I said, if I make them nervous, if any of these cameras make them uncomfortable, then we're affecting their performance, and that's unfair. That's not reasonable. Fortunately, we had enough time to develop a rapport where they actually felt like we were just blending into the background. In some cases, it was actually uplifting to get to see us, because it's like, hey, we can have our little soapbox again.
We can get into some good documentary with the shaky camera running after us as we run out of the building.
So, Eli, what are some of your favorite moments that made it into the film?
There's a couple of little sweet side moments, just to give some breath, to give some levity, just to put us in the shoes of the students. One of my favorite is when they're sitting around eating lunch and they're explaining the term Riz, this quaint little term, to their teacher, which I find so endearing, because he seems so genuinely puzzled by what is this word that you're saying, and the amount of excitement and elation that they have of like, oh my God, we can teach Mr. Campbell something.
They had ultimate Riz, so I guess that's where we're coming in.
They said it hurt.
It hurt?
Yeah, they said it hurt.
Who?
Going against Regis.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. You all
Because of all the Riz.
What is Riz? Is it a term I don't know?
Riz from charisma.
It's literally just
Okay.
it's just charisma.
Okay.
It's very high school boy.
It's
Yeah.
so
A high school boy talks to a girl, other high school boy goes, "You got
Okay.
Riz." It's like,
yeah.
I just love that, and I love the sort of role reversal moment of it. Working in documentary, being honest, I was never expecting that just being stuck with a random team, a random high school team, was going to translate into anything that might be enjoyable media. I mean, that's just not, truthfully what it's like in nonfiction. You film and, folks might have great ideas, but they might get camera shy or they may not be charismatic. In this case, I think, these students were so above and beyond expectation, and how articulate they are and how caring they are, creative, sweet, you name it. So yeah, I still just feel so touched and just privileged to have had this opportunity.
Well, those are some great kids. It's a great program, and it made for a wonderful movie. Thank you for making that film, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.